Hello, fight fans. Thanks for joining us at MMA Insider. Before we get rolling with today's news, show some love by hitting that like button and subscribing. Now let's uncover the latest happenings in MMA. Starting off, Michael Chandler calls out Nate Diaz for a fight at UFC 306. Moving on, Strickland slams Khamzat Chimaev for smash token failure. Next, Daniel Cormier explains how Tom Aspinall could sabotage Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic. Lastly, Strickland rips the idea of Robert Whittaker getting another title shot. Michael Chandler has called out Nate Diaz for a fight at UFC 306. UFC 306 will take place on Saturday, September 14th at the Sphere in Las Vegas, Nevada. A lineup has yet to be provided by the promotion. The call-out must mean that Michael Chandler is tired of waiting for his opponent Conor McGregor to be ready for a fight. The two opposing TUF 31 coaches were scheduled to battle it out in the cage at UFC 303 last month, but the Irishman withdrew due to injury. With Nate Diaz's latest victory over Jorge Masvidal in the boxing ring this past weekend, the 39-year-old has indicated he'd like to return to the octagon. In a series of posts to X, Michael Chandler, while dissing McGregor, is indicating he's ready and willing to fight Nate Diaz. Here's what he said. "Sit down, Ron. Better idea. Me and Nate Diaz fight like real men while Conor sits on a yacht and watches on pay-per-view in his slippers. The new Where's Waldo, the Mac Daddy had a great run though. Instill fear, let him pull out of the fight and embarrass himself. Be known as the guy who retired McGregor without ever throwing a punch." Diaz, now a free agent, would have to be accepted back by the promotion in order to fight in the UFC. Nate Diaz announced his departure from the mixed martial arts organization after defeating Tony Ferguson in September of 2022 at UFC 279. Following the victory over Masvidal last Saturday night, Diaz indicated who he'd like to fight next, and Michael Chandler didn't make the list. Here is what he said. "Just off the top of my head, I would like to whip Paul's ass. I would like to get a win against Leon Edwards, who's the best fighter in the world right now at 170 pounds. I think that's something major who actually brings something that I can take and put in a credential box. That's what I'm going for. I'm not playing for no fun fights because that ain't fun." What do you think of Michael Chandler calling out Nate Diaz? Is that a fight you'd like to see? Share your thoughts in the comment section. Former UFC middleweight champion Strickland has taken aim at Khamzat Chimaev. It's been a rough month for Khamzat. Late last month, Khamzat Chimaev was set to return to the cage in Saudi Arabia against former UFC champion Robert Whittaker. However, just a few weeks before fight day, the Chechen pulled out due to illness. In his place, Ikram Aliskerov was handed a knockout loss by Robert Whittaker. Not long after pulling out, Khamzat Chimaev found himself embroiled in controversy. In the ever-evolving and chaotic world of cryptocurrency, there are many tokens created. Well, Chimaev lent his likeness to the Smash token, which has been suspected to be a pump-and-dump scheme by many fans online. Some allege that Khamzat Chimaev stole upwards of $1 million from investors into the coin. Well, the whole situation hasn't sat well with one Strickland. Taking to X earlier today, the former UFC middleweight champion ripped into Khamzat for allegedly stealing money from fans. Here is what he said. "I've been offered a ton of money to do this same exact thing. Crazy man, you're rich and still try to scam your fans. Been on X too much. I'll leave you all with this. That was 100% to scam his fans. How do I know this? I was just approached to do this same thing. Integrity, you either have it or you don't. Y'all shouldn't let this vanish in a news cycle. Absolutely wrong. Goodbye." As of now, Khamzat Chimaev has yet to comment on the situation directly. It's also unlikely that the middleweight contender will respond to Strickland either. Despite Khamzat Chimaev's pullout against Whittaker last month, he's already returned to training. While he has no official return date, he has been linked to UFC 308 in Abu Dhabi. Khamzat previously competed in Abu Dhabi for his latest fight, a majority decision victory over Kamaru Usman last year. Meanwhile, Strickland is fresh off a split decision win over Paulo Costa last month at UFC 302. Following the victory, Strickland announced plans to sit out and wait for the winner of Israel Adesanya versus Dricus du Plessis. Daniel Cormier thinks Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic might fall through the cracks if Tom Aspinall makes a statement at UFC 304. Aspinall will face Curtis Blaydes in defense of his interim UFC heavyweight title at UFC 304 in Manchester on July 27th. He returns to the octagon for the first time since knocking out Sergey Pavlovich for the interim title in November. While Blaydes is Aspinall's primary focus, Jones, the lineal UFC heavyweight champion, is waiting in the wings for his desired fight with Stipe Miocic. Jones and Miocic were supposed to fight at UFC 295 before Jones withdrew due to injury. Since Aspinall's win and Jones's ongoing hiatus, fans and pundits have clamored for the UFC to ditch the Stipe fight in favor of Aspinall. Cormier believes that Aspinall could force the UFC UFC's hand with a dominant performance in Manchester. In a recent segment on his YouTube channel, Cormier weighed in on the state of the heavyweight division and how Aspinall can change it. Here is what he said. Could you imagine if Tom Aspinall just washes out Curtis Blaydes? Then the firestorm that would start to gather for him to fight Jon Jones? But if Aspinall goes through Blaydes in the way that he did Sergey Pavlovich, and he's only lost because of that injury default, people would lose their minds, almost insisting that he and Jones fight if Tom Aspinall can get through this fight and he's clean and looks dominant. There may be such a fan uprising that the UFC may have to be forced to make Jones versus Aspinall. I don't know what that would mean for my man Stipe Miocic, but it sounds like if it does happen, he's okay with it. Miocic, in a recent interview, empathized with Aspinall's frustration regarding the Jones fight. He also seemed content in walking away if the UFC decided to move on from the Jones fight. Jones captured the then vacant UFC heavyweight title by defeating Cyril Gane at UFC 285 last year. Since that victory, Aspinall has won back-to-back fights, including Pavlovich. The UFC heavyweight title picture continues to be one of the hottest MMA talking points of 2024. If Daniel Cormier's remarks are any indication, the Jon Jones versus Stipe Miocic fight might not be set in stone until Aspinall has something to say about it. Former UFC middleweight champion Sean Strickland won't be happy if Robert Whittaker skips the line and gets the next title shot. UFC middleweight champion Dricus du Plessis will face former title holder Israel Adesanya in the UFC 305 main event next month. Strickland and Whittaker are waiting in the wings for the winner of the upcoming title fight. Strickland, just days after defeating Paulo Costa at UFC 302, insisted that he has no intentions to fight another top middleweight in the meantime. He publicly refused a matchup with Whittaker, who is neck and neck with him in the title chase. After Whittaker finished Ikram Aliskerov at UFC Saudi Arabia, some have clamored for Whittaker to get the next title shot over Strickland. In a recent tweet, Strickland scoffed at Whittaker potentially getting the next middleweight title shot. Here is what he said. "The thought that Whittaker gets a title shot before me is f***ing wild. Bro, you're 0-3 with a stoppage lel. I beat both those Do rankings matter? Do the right thing, UFC." Strickland's win over Costa was a nice bounce-back performance after falling to du Plessis by split decision at UFC 297. The fight was Strickland's first middleweight title defense after pulling off the mammoth upset against Adesanya at UFC 293. Whittaker, like Strickland, bounced back nicely after a stunning defeat in the octagon. He lost to du Plessis at UFC 290 before the victory over Aliskerov. Thank you so much for tuning into today's video. Your dedication and support fuel our passion to bring you the latest and greatest in the MMA world. If you enjoyed today's news, please give us a thumbs up and share it with fellow MMA fans. Remember to subscribe to stay in the loop with daily MMA updates. We've got a lot of exciting news, interviews, and analysis coming your way every single day. Your engagement helps us grow and serve the MMA community even better. Once again, thank you for being an integral part of our daily MMA journey.